I still remember the night it all began. The Harrington estate, a palace of marble and chandeliers, glittered brighter than the stars themselves. Guests in gowns and tuxedos moved like shadows of wealth across the ballroom, raising glasses to Richard Harrington. 70 years old, still standing tall, still wearing the polished mask of a man the world admired. But beneath that mask lay secrets that had been buried for decades, waiting for someone bold enough, or desperate enough, to bring them into the light. That someone was a young man named Aaron Miller. He wasn't dressed for the occasion. No silk, no velvet, no polished shoes. Just a plain shirt, worn hands, and eyes that burned with something stronger than wealth. Truth. When he walked into that ballroom, the music stopped. The orchestra faltered, glasses froze mid-air, and a silence heavier than stone fell upon the crowd. "My name," he declared, his voice echoing off the golden walls, "is Aaron Miller. And I am Richard Harrington's son." Gasps followed. Margaret Harrington, the matriarch, clutched her pearls as though they might shield her from shame. Daniel, the heir to the Harrington empire, stormed forward like a bull, ready to trample the intruder. Clara, the daughter, stood still, her eyes wide, her expression unreadable. Aaron didn't flinch. From his pocket he drew a pendant, old, silver, worn by time. And yet unmistakable. The very same design that hung from Daniel's neck and from Clara's. A symbol Richard had boasted of giving only to his children. "My mother was Sarah Miller," Aaron continued, his voice steady, though his hands must have trembled inside. "She worked in this house. She loved you, Richard. She carried your child. And while you built this empire, she died in poverty. Alone, silenced by fear. I am her son. I am your son." The guests whispered. The air itself seemed to split. Richard Harrington, patriarch, king in his castle, stood still. His smile had vanished. His hand trembled around his glass. And though his words were sharp, his voice betrayed a crack. "This is nonsense. Security, remove him." But it was too late. The seed was planted. The mask of the Harringtons had been chipped, and Aaron Miller had no intention of leaving quietly. The weeks that followed turned wealth into spectacle. The media feasted. News anchors shouted headlines about illegitimacy, betrayal, scandal. For the first time in decades, Richard Harrington was not praised, but questioned. And in a small apartment across the city, Aaron sat surrounded by photographs, letters, and memories of his mother. Peeling paint on the walls, the hum of old pipes. It was no mansion. Yet it held something the Harrington estate never had. Truth. Aaron spoke to her photo late at night, his voice breaking. "You were too afraid to fight them, Mom. But I am not. I'll drag every secret into the light. For you." The courtroom became their battlefield. Dark wood panels, high ceilings, rows of journalists scribbling every word. It was less a trial, more a theater where power and truth clashed. On one side sat Richard Harrington, his lawyers in sharp suits, Daniel glaring like a predator, Clara sitting in silence, Margaret stiff as stone. On the other sat Aaron, alone except for his lawyer, Alex Grant, a man known for fighting giants on behalf of underdogs. Judge William Carter presided, stern, weary, yet sharp. "This court," he said, "will hear claims of paternity, inheritance, and corruption. Let the truth speak." And the truth did speak. Aaron brought letters, handwritten notes, love confessions, promises. The very words of Richard Harrington to Sarah Miller, once hidden in a drawer, now displayed before the world. Experts confirmed the handwriting. Gasps filled the courtroom. Reporters scribbled faster. Richard's face was a mask, but his eyes betrayed him. Each day unearthed more. Documents of land seized from poor families. Records of bribes disguised as business deals. And then, the darkest revelation. A witness took the stand, trembling but resolute. He spoke of Daniel Harrington. A night years ago. A protest. A young man struck by a car. A cover, upsealed with money and threats. The courtroom erupted. Daniel shouted, red with fury, lies, fabrications. But the judge's gavel silenced him. The Harringtons were no longer untouchable. Their sins crawled into the light, one by one. And as the walls closed in, the family turned on itself. Margaret wept in silence, remembering every affair she had endured for the sake of wealth. Daniel lashed out, furious at his father, furious at Aaron, furious at the world. Clara, torn between blood and conscience, sought Aaron in secret. One evening, away from cameras, she whispered to him, "You think exposing them will free you? It will destroy us all." Aaron's eyes were steady. Sometimes destruction is the only path to justice. She looked at him for a long moment, and in her silence, there was something like agreement. At last, the trial reached its end. The courtroom was silent, every soul waiting for judgment. Judge Carter's voice carried like thunder. "This court finds sufficient evidence to support Aaron Miller's claim of paternity. The Harrington fortune is stained by deception. Land was stolen, bribes were paid, and crimes were concealed. Daniel Harrington's actions shall be referred for criminal investigation. Let it be known, the Harringtons' legacy is unmasked." The words fell heavy. Richard Harrington's empire, built over decades, cracked and splintered in an instant. Margaret lowered her face into her hands. Clara exhaled, as though freed from chains. Daniel erupted, lunging toward Aaron, screaming promises of revenge. Security dragged him away. And Aaron stood tall, his heart pounding with the victory he had dreamed of his entire life. His mother's honor restored. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed like lightning. Reporters shouted questions. "Aaron, will you inherit the empire? Will you take control of the Harrington legacy?" Aaron paused. The choice lay heavy on his shoulders. He could destroy them utterly, take their wealth, claim everything they had denied him. Revenge was within his grasp. But then he remembered Sarah Miller. Her quiet smile, her refusal to curse the man who betrayed her, her dignity even in poverty. He looked into the flashing cameras and spoke softly, but firmly. "I didn't fight for their fortune. I fought for my mother's name. The truth is out. That is enough." And with those words, he turned away, walking down the courthouse steps. The Harringtons stood behind him, broken, their masks forever shattered. The world now knew their truth. And Sarah Miller's honor shone brighter than all their riches.